I'm Ed Musio. As my best-selling book, Iterate, gained popularity, managers and leaders started asking me for tips, actions they could take to help make their management teams better. So I created this series to help you and your team iterate and improve, one small step at a time. This episode is Look Forward, Not Backward. Imagine I work for you. You ask how things are going, and I put up this graph. The blue lines show how much output I've produced, and the orange line shows my plan to increase as the year goes on. But you can't change the past, and what you really care about is whether I need help or see any problems coming up. And that's not here. When you ask me what's going to happen, I start rambling about what I expect. You start trying to figure out if I'm right, if I'm being honest, and what I'm actually saying. This is inefficient, especially if my peers are sitting around listening to it in a staff meeting. Instead, here's one small step to take the guesswork out of this conversation. Require your team to use data with two futures. What you really want from me is something like this. Hey boss, here's the plan I'm supposed to hit, and as of right now, here's what I expect, including where I see differences coming up. Now you've got something to talk about. Do we need to do anything today about the variance that's coming up? If this all seems a little oversimplified, let's talk about some particulars. Graphs can vary, and actually, different types of work will have different graphs. For routine work, show planned versus expected output. People who are delivering regular output in predictable batches should show when and how they expect things to go differently than the plan they've communicated in the past. For troubleshooting work, show planned versus current workload. People who are solving unpredictable problems can still show you whether they're carrying a queue that's roughly equal, smaller than, or bigger than what they expected and what they are resourced to accomplish. For project work, show scheduled versus upcoming expectations. People working on project plans don't need to focus too much on which milestones have been accomplished and whether they were early or late. Instead, the question you should ask them is, do you expect to deliver to plan on upcoming output commitments? The key is, you want to see graphs showing a variance in the future so you can make decisions today. For these and more examples, by the way, check out the appendices of Iterate. Of course, there are also some ways not to do this, which brings us to the pitfalls. First, be careful about people making up or faking data. This is not a fictitious or exaggerated story to make things look good. It's a best estimate to trigger the necessary conversations. Reward honesty. Tell people bad news is good news because the sooner we learn it, the more time we have to deal with it. Second, be mindful about making forecasting too difficult. If it takes hours for your team to revise their expectations, they won't do it frequently enough. Third, it's not good if people are constantly changing what's being reported. Have your people pick a data set, choose what they'll count, and stick with it week after week. Finally, there's no excuse for failing to improve. Forecasting isn't easy, but people get better at it over time. Tracking past accuracy and setting an expectation of reasonable improvement are good strategies. So, how will you know if it worked? Mainly you'll know because you'll be able to have data-based meetings that spend a little time on status and a lot of time on decision-making, instead of the other way around. The good news is, over time, you'll probably also notice your staff members more consistently looking ahead to the next issue instead of trying to explain away past problems. And, maybe best of all, you'll find that you have better and more accurate forecasts to bring to your own management. This kind of forward-looking orientation is a core component of what I call work preview meetings, one of the 5 key practices of iterative management. So, whether your people track planned versus expected output, planned versus current queue size, or scheduled versus upcoming milestone delivery, require your team to use data with two futures, and you'll shift team meetings toward more forward-looking decisions, which can only help your whole team iterate.